Hello, fire goddesses, and welcome to episode 98. In this episode, I break it all down for you about whether or not meat is good for you or bad for you. You know, there's so much conflicting information out there. It's really confusing. I have often gotten caught up in that web of confusion on trying to figure out, well, should I eat it? Should I not eat it? Is it good for me or not? And after being in the field of Chinese medicine for almost 20 years, that includes my time studying the medicine, practicing the medicine, and now coaching clients using principles of Chinese medicine, I have seen it all when it comes to working with clients who are vegetarians or meat eaters, and how it actually affects their bodies when they do not eat meat. So I don't want to give too much away in this intro, but I really invite you to listen to this whole episode because, as you'll quickly discover, so much of this isn't just about the meat. It's about making informed choices based on what works best for our body, what works best for our lives, and not just following along with what other people are saying and what the quote unquote experts are saying. But it's more about just making those wise choices and how you can make better choices when it comes to eating meat. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your F.I.R.E. podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world, and that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses, and welcome to another episode of the Reclaim Your F.I.R.E. podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I'm your host of the podcast, and I have a really exciting topic today. Well, you may or may not consider it exciting. I would say maybe it's more interesting, intriguing, thought-provoking, kind of along the lines of what I typically talk about on this podcast. It's something that comes up all the time. It came up all the time when I had my acupuncture practice. It comes up all the time when I'm working with my clients. It comes up all the time in social circles and family conversations because there's so much confusion about this particular subject. I want to first add this caveat, and that is, it isn't my intention to create controversy, or if you have certain beliefs about this subject, to challenge your beliefs. This is only information. This is for your own information only, and it is based on my many years as a clinician in Chinese medicine and in my 5 years of being a coach. But mainly a lot of my information that I'm sharing with you comes from Chinese medicine theory. So the question is this, the subject is this: is meat bad for you? I feel like I hear about this all the time, where I learn about another friend of mine or relative who has given up meat because their doctor told them it's a good idea to stop eating meat. Another thing I want to say, disclaimer, is this is not meant to challenge any kind of protocol that you have with your doctor, any agreement you have with your medical community. Again, this is for your own information. And obviously you want to do what's best for your own health and your own well-being. It is my intention, however, to give you some viewpoints that a lot of people are not aware of. A lot of people don't know about Chinese medicine theory and some of these ancient medicines and thought systems that were here and have been established for thousands and thousands of years before we've existed. So keep that in mind while you're listening. And I also want to mention that I come from the space of whole foods, healthy food, eating real food, eating local food, eating organic as much as possible, supporting farmers. So I come from that health space. I don't come from the, eating McDonald's. I don't buy my meat from anywhere, which I'm going to go into later. And let's just dig into the subject, okay? So all the time, I don't know, I feel like it's at least once or twice a week I hear about somebody commenting on why it's important to cut out meat, significantly reduce meat, or go vegetarian or vegan. And what I want to share with you is the reasons why, in my personal observation and in my knowledge of Chinese medicine, why meat is actually really, really good for you. Now, I also want to add this. I used to be a vegetarian. So back in my 20s, I became vegetarian, and I was a vegetarian for 4 years. And like so many people who go vegetarian or go vegan, they often report that they're feeling really good in the beginning. And then after a while, either it works for them or it doesn't. And that's another thing, is I do think that there are some people that actually vegetarianism or veganism is really, really good for them. And only you are going to know. I don't know, if I don't know you in person, I can't tell you whether it's, the best option for you or not. But ask yourself this, use your intuition, ask your bodily wisdom, what is the best diet for you? And if you don't know, that might be a clue that you need to do some research or start working with somebody that can help you with that. So I was a vegetarian from the time I was 27 years old to the time I was, I think, 32. So it was actually longer than 4 years. It was about 5 years, maybe even 6 years. And I was really into it. I never really ate meat at all. It wasn't even like a temptation. I really felt that the lifestyle worked for me. I felt good. But when I started acupuncture school, when I went back to get my master's in Chinese medicine, I would say I was in my second or third month of going to school, and I was feeling utterly fatigued, exhausted, drained. And I was chalking it up to, I'm studying all the time, I'm in class all the time, I'm operating at crazy hours, waking up early to go to class, staying up late to study. And as a student, as you probably know, if you've been to school, sometimes the schedule gets a little crazy. And when I went to grad school, it was probably one of the most stressful times. Stressful by choice, by the way. When I look at myself now as opposed to then, I realize, maybe I could have been practicing my subconscious. Maybe I could have been more aware of my subconscious thought patterns and my beliefs. Maybe I could have been doing self-hypnosis, like all the things, all the tools that I use now to help me with my limiting beliefs. But that's a different podcast episode. You've heard me talk about this over and over again. If you are not familiar with that, then go back and listen to some of the previous episodes where I talk about your beliefs and subconscious reprogramming and the importance of literally changing your thought patterns using hypnosis, because it's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I was in school and I was exhausted, tired, and I woke up one day and I said, you know what? I think it's time for me to start eating meat again, because frankly, I am completely zonked. I was literally falling asleep in class. I was feeling lightheaded. I was not feeling in my body. I think I had lost or released a large amount of weight. So even though from the outside I may have looked good, you know, and those compliments start coming in, oh, you've lost weight, you look great. But inside, you know, you're like screaming like, oh, I just, you know, I don't feel good, right? Well, that's what happened to me. I always felt that when I started to lose too much weight, I never really felt good. So I remember my friend and I, we had a break from class and we went to the diner. At the time, my school was in Watertown, Mass. Now it's in Worcester, Mass. But at the time it was in Watertown, in an old Catholic church basement, and the Deluxe Town Diner just down the street. And they had Wagyu beef. They had Kobe beef burgers. And I said, I am going to order a Kobe beef burger today. And it came, and I remember the server put it in front of me, and I was completely like blissed out. Guys, first of all, I just want to say, if you're hearing a lot of background noise, I apologize. Hopefully I will be able to edit all this out later. And sometimes the program that I use to record, it does a really good job. But I feel like there's a lot of background noise today. It's raining outside and I live in the city, so every time a car passes by, it's like splish splash. I'm taking a bath. Life is a little different right now for me because I do live in the city. I'm used to peace and quiet. My condo is very, very quiet and peaceful. I live in a quiet neighborhood, but there's still a lot of background noise, and I don't have a soundproof room to record my podcast. So if this is showing up with a lot of background noise, please excuse it. It's not going to be forever. I have changes in the planning right now, which I can't really disclose at the moment, and that's off subject anyway, but know that it will not be forever that you have to listen to this background noise. But anyway, so that Kobe beef burger was unbelievable, and that was the beginning of me really trusting my body to know what it needs. And perhaps it was going on for a little bit before that, but I just remember feeling like I am drained. I need something. My brain needs fuel. I'm feeling too lightheaded. Like I was feeling literally like I was in the clouds, like my head was in the clouds. And I needed sustenance. And looking back, all the, studying, burning the candle at both ends, staying up late, all those things that in Chinese medicine we talk about, literally taxes our kidney system. I was doing all those things, and frankly, my body needed some compensation or else it was going to crash and burn. And when I had my acupuncture practice, and even when I work with my coaching clients who are mainly focused on their health, they talk about this. And in my clinical experience, when I had a client coming in who was a vegetarian, I'll share a case study or two with you today, because I think it's really, really important to note this, and I do believe that this is going to help a lot of people. So there are two clients that I'm thinking of specifically right now who were vegetarian, and they were coming in for various health conditions. So the first one was a vegetarian for like ever and ever and ever, and she was a vegetarian because of animal rights and the environment, and she wanted to do the right thing. And she was also trying to conceive. She was one of my fertility patients. So she was trying to conceive a baby, and she was having all kinds of difficulties with that. Her period was all over the place, and I don't think I have her records anymore because it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure she had problems with her thyroid. Yes, she did. She did have problems with her thyroid, and she was not able to conceive a baby. And she had been trying for a very long time. And over the course of several conversations, several sessions, several consults with me, I was able to talk her into, and it's not that I want to influence anybody's beliefs or anything, but it was coming from the place of, listen, maybe this vegetarianism is the reason why your body is having such a difficult time with conceiving a baby. And she had a miscarriage, maybe 2 miscarriages, but definitely at least 1 miscarriage. And we went back and forth about it. And finally, she decided to start eating a little bit. And ideally, in this situation, red meat is the best. And let me explain why. Like, yes, chicken and poultry and fish, those are all good for other reasons. They provide the protein, they're good for your muscles, they're good for your body in other ways. Red meat is different from the other animal protein sources because red meat is more effective at building blood than the other proteins. So whether it's coming from cow, whether it's coming from deer, elk, bison, buffalo, those muscle meats, the red meats, and I guess it's not just muscle meats, but it's the red meats that come from those sources that I just mentioned, actually build blood better than white meats like pork and chicken and fish. In Chinese medicine, one of the principles behind Chinese medicine is the idea of qi and movement and nourishment of qi and blood. When the body is in balance, when the body is in homeostasis, the blood is flowing throughout the body and it's nourishing the organs, the tissues, the cells, the bones. And when it's out of balance, that means that the blood is not nourishing and getting to all the places that it needs to be. And oftentimes that's a result of stagnation or blood stasis. Also, what happens in Chinese medicine is blood deficiency. So that means that the blood is not getting, so like I mentioned earlier, it's not nourishing all the tissues, all the cells, all the organs, all the bones, all the things, but it's also, there's not an adequate amount of blood because it's not being, one thing with Chinese medicine, it's a totally different model of looking at health. So you can't really compare Western medicine to Chinese medicine. So I invite you to just let go of what you already know about the body if your only point of reference is Western medicine. So when the body is deficient in blood, it actually is not producing an adequate supply of blood, and then oftentimes the patient will show up and present with blood deficiency symptoms. One thing that's really, really amazing about female bodies, in addition to the fact that we're just amazing, right, is that we have our menstrual cycle. Men do not. So we have the benefit of always being able, assuming that we have a menstrual period, and that could, maybe I'll do a podcast on the period at some point, because there are so many people, so many women that I know that are not getting a period, and it's not because they're in menopause or perimenopause, it's because of other reasons. But it is a beautiful, beautiful benefit to be a woman with a menstrual cycle, because every month we have the opportunity to look at the state of our blood. Are we getting a period? Are we not getting a period? Right? Are we having do we have amenorrhea, meaning no period because the body is just not producing a period? It's not, the uterine lining is not filling up adequately to shed. Like, what's going on there? Is the period scanty? Is the period light? Is the period heavy and clotty? What is the color of the period? Or what is the color of the blood? Excuse me. There's a lot of information that we can gather by the way that our menstrual cycle shows up. And not just when we're bleeding, but throughout the month, assuming that we have a 28 to 30 day cycle, and some people don't, which is another piece to look at, right? There's so much wisdom that our body gives us, and that's just coming from the menstrual cycle alone. Now, men, they have their cycles too. So, women, we tend to go by the lunar cycle, the moon cycle, whereas men, they go by the yang or the sun cycle, the 24-hour cycle. That could be a different topic for a different day, but right now we're talking about the lunar cycle and the menstrual cycle, and how it has the ability to give us the information about the state of our blood. Like, how amazing is that? So if you're not getting a menstrual cycle, whether it's not coming on time, you're getting no period at all, and it's not because it's being stopped by the use of birth control or an IUD or something like that. If you're not getting a menstrual period, that could be a clue that you may be blood deficient. You could also have blood stasis, because you can actually have both of them simultaneously. And now that I'm talking about this, I feel like I could really go deeper into this, because a lot of people could benefit, a lot of women can benefit by learning about this. A lot of moms listening with daughters, or dads listening with daughters, or parents listening with daughters, or persons with a menstrual cycle can learn so much about this very important thing. Now, when I got my period, I was 13 and I was in 8th grade. And because no one ever really talked about it, I remember, I think I went to, my school had a little special night where you could go and watch a movie and go with your mom or your, guardian or whomever, and learn about this thing that happens every single month. And I think I was in maybe 5th or 6th grade when this happened. But I remember feeling very, very embarrassed because nobody was openly talking about it. And I read, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret." And, that's how I found out that I bleed every month. And that's how it was approached back then. And I think it still is approached in a way where we're kind of neglectful of the menstrual cycle. Meanwhile, and I realize I'm going on a tangent and not talking about meat anymore, but it's very connected, because eating red meat, no matter what gender you associate with, can be very, very beneficial to your blood, to the state of your blood, to the health of your blood, to the nourishment of your blood, to the movement of chi and blood, which is a necessary function that needs to happen in the body in order for all the blood, in order for all the cells, in order for all the tissues, the muscles, everything to be nourished appropriately. So that is another reason why meat is important. So like that client I was talking about earlier, who was a vegetarian and was confused about why she was unable to conceive or why she had repetitive miscarriages, once she started, after she went through her resistance and realized, okay, like this is for my health, I'm going to start eating, I think I had her on maybe 4 ounces of red meat once or twice a week. That made all the difference. She was able to conceive a baby within months. 3 months, I believe, she was pregnant. And she carried full term. She continued to come to acupuncture every week. And we continued doing our health consultations and coaching so that she was adequately nourishing her body throughout her pregnancy and after birth. And she had not just one, but 2 very healthy daughters as a result of having this information. And it's unfortunate, actually, that meat is looked upon as this demon in our diet that creates nothing but problems. So I want to just break that down a little bit. So you already know that meat is beneficial to nourishing the blood in the body. And you already know how, especially if you're female and you have a menstrual cycle, how you can determine the state of your body, the state of blood in your body. And if you want to know more about the period, I would love to do an episode about this. I'm actually talking out loud here. I think it would be really beneficial. If you're still getting a period, even if you're not getting a period, I just feel like this information is very, very useful. And if you don't have a period, there's other ways that you can tell the state of your blood too. I don't want to get too off track, but let's get back to that in another episode. So as far as meat goes, I just remember, I've just heard so many people, and these are oftentimes people, because a lot of the people I know and associate with are health-minded, health-conscious individuals, or at least health-curious. And I remember being at dinner with a family friend one time, and, really healthy guy, owns a health club, really into working out, has worked out his whole life. And he's like, I no longer eat meat. And I'm sharing this conversation because it's not the first time I've had a conversation like this before. He's like, I'm done with meat. Like, I read the China study and meat is bad and I'm no longer going to eat it. And I'll be completely frank with you. I did not read the China study. I purchased the book, but I didn't read it. I read the Cliff's Notes. Basically, I read about it. And what I can gather is that the China study is not really accurate data. And the reason why is that there's no specifics around where your meat is coming from in the China study. It's just assuming that you're buying meat from the store, that you're buying industrialized meat, you're buying meat from large corporations, typical standard meat that you get in the grocery store. Now, personally, I don't touch that stuff. I don't eat meat that comes from the grocery store. Maybe once in a while I do if I go to a friend's house and that's what they're serving, and I will eat it once in a while. But my day-to-day meat consumption comes from a local farmer where I know this person personally. I've been with her. It's a husband and wife, Kim and Rich, Chestnut Farms. I have been with them for 7 years, and I've had my meat CSA with them, and I know them personally. I know how the animals are raised. I know that their cows are grass-fed. I know that they eat well. I know that they're not fed corn. Now, here's the thing, okay? I was just in Indiana back in July, okay? If you go to certain states in the United States, or even, certain countries where there's a lot of farming, you're often going to see a lot of cornfields, okay? Those cornfields are not the kind of corn you get like corn on the cob for your 4th of July, or not 4th of July, I guess Labor Day barbecue, right? That corn that is growing in those cornfields is for fuel, so ethanol, and for feeding. I think most of it is. And maybe sugar too. I'm not totally sure, but most of it is for fuel, and most of it is for feeding the animals corn. Okay? So imagine. All right, let's backtrack a little bit more, okay? So corn is high in omega-6s. Omega-6s, look it up, is highly inflammatory. Okay, so these animals in regular, standard lots, feeding lots, the mainstream meat industry, a majority of what they're fed is corn. Highly inflammatory. And also, most of that corn is not organic, right? So it's treated for pests and treated so that, they can harvest the corn, feed it to the animals, and, not have a lot of problems with insects, right? So imagine that, okay? These cows that you're eating, these delicious steaks that you're having at, unless it specifically states on the menu that it's grass-fed. If you go to places like the famous steakhouses, you know where they are. I don't need to drop any names and have them come after me. They're being fed corn. So you go and you order your steak and you are eating an animal that was fed corn. Okay? Corn is high in omega-6s. Very, very inflammatory, right? How do you think that's going to affect your body? How do you think eating an animal, eating meat that was fed corn is going to affect your inflammatory state? Okay? And what do you believe causes a majority of diseases? Where does it start? It starts with inflammation. So think about it. And, I don't remember what the China study claims. Probably, makes links to heart disease and stroke and blood clots and all the things, right? So if you are afraid to eat meat, I want to ask you this question. Or if you've been told not to eat meat. And obviously, do your own research, make your own decisions. I always, when I work with clients, I ask them to tap into their inner knowing, their higher wisdom. And if they don't know how, I have ways to help them get there. But ask yourself, is this the right thing for me or not? Do I need to cut out meat altogether, or can I still have it, but eat it, but get it from a smaller farmer, from a local source, from a farmer who feeds their animals non-inflammatory foods? And that's also not to consider, like, I'm not even talking about like the pesticides and the chemicals and all the other things that are present in the corn and in the crops that are fed to these animals, and who knows what else is going on when these animals are, by the time they're slaughtered, where they've been living, how many chemicals they've been exposed to just in their day-to-day life. So, in listening to this episode, I invite you to just, when you hear information, whether it's about meat or it's about health or it's about something else entirely, consider for yourself, where is this information coming from? Right? Is it coming from a reliable source, first of all? And maybe ask more questions. Is meat really bad for me? Or is it because of where I'm actually purchasing my meat? I got my bachelor's degree in environmental science. So I went to a very sciencey school where it was, I had some of the best professors in the country teaching me about ecology and biology and chemistry and all the sciences, okay? And I remember, this is, a long time ago at this point, but I feel like this information still stands true. This was, 93, 94. So, it's been a good amount of years now. Holy crap. It's been almost 30 years since I've been out of college. That's crazy. Anyway, so I remember one of my boyfriends, was kind of a die-hard vegetarian, and his girlfriend, my friend, she had this poster on her, on the door of her room, because I lived in a sorority house with all these girls, and she had a poster on her door that said "Thanksgiving is murder" on turkeys, and no judgment. They were just, that was their thing. They were really, really into vegetarianism. And so one time there was this debate at my school. I went to the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, for those of you wondering. It's in Syracuse, New York. It's part of the SUNY system, and it is probably the best college of environmental science in the country. Like, now it's like super competitive. I don't know that I would have gotten in, like, if I were a student trying to get in now with the grades that I had back then. So anyway, amazing school if you're interested in ecology, biology, environmental forestry, landscape architecture, any kind of science, wood product engineering, paper science engineering. I think they still have all those majors and probably more. Great school. Great school for science. So I went to this debate one night, and it was my friend's boyfriend and one of the established professors at SUNY ESF. His name was Dr. Brock. Dr. Brock, right? Yes, his name was Dr. Rainier Brock. And there was this debate about vegetarianism and, student versus professor. And I was basically going because I had a lot of respect for Dr. Brock, and this was my friend's boyfriend. So it was like a social night out, which is pretty typical if you go to an environmental science school. Like, this is a very social outing to go to a debate about vegetarianism. And so they're going back and forth. But one of the things that Dr. Brock said that I always remember this, right, is if you look at the jaw of a human being, you look at our teeth and you look at how we're structured and how we're built. We are meant to eat meat. Just like our dogs, if you look at their teeth, like, they're meant to eat meat. Now, we're omnivores, right? Like, human beings are omnivores, dogs are omnivores, cats, they're total carnivores. So, but if you look at our jaws, right? Our jaws do not look like the jaw of a deer or a rabbit. And they are herbivores. They are vegetarian. They do not eat meat. They would probably get very, very sick if they ate meat. Cows do not eat meat. So, and again, I have read the arguments that we are also very adaptable and we can adapt to the change in diet. And this is not meant to get, PETA and, people writing to me and saying, this is the reason why eating meat is wrong. Okay. I'm just giving you my experience, my knowledge on why eating meat can actually be very good for your health. So think about that. Like, think about, how we're built, our structure. Look at an anatomical, for those of you that are really analytical, okay? If the structure of your jaw doesn't convince you, look at an anatomical picture of the human body. We are, like, hugely muscle. What's going to fuel that muscle? Like, have you ever known a bodybuilder? Have you ever known anybody, maybe you have yourself, have you ever competed in a bodybuilding challenge or a bodybuilding contest? Like, I've had friends do it, and they say that they see differences in the way their muscle looks before they eat a steak for dinner and after they eat a steak for dinner. So what does that say? What is that telling you? Yes, there is plant protein and there are the other, versions of protein, but let me tell you this, okay? The clients that I've had, now you could argue this is anecdotal for those of you that are scientific, okay? However, this happened over and over and over again, that it just makes you wonder. The clients that I had in my practice, and I know I promised to give you another case study, but this person is actually included in this statement. The clients that I've had when I had my clinical practice, and since I've started working with people more one-on-one online, who are vegetarian, have more problems with brain fog, with their hair falling out. And I'm going to get back to that in a second, because those of you that are really into having healthy hair, skin, and nails, we'll return to that, okay? Their hair often fell out. They often complain that they didn't have eyebrows, or that their eyebrows are falling out. And that could also be like a thyroid imbalance, which could also come from, just not getting adequate nutrition into your diet. Could also come from ingesting fluoride. But here's the thing, okay? Those clients had a lot of difficulty with brain fog, with spaciness, with not feeling grounded in their body, right? They were always doing yoga to get grounded into their bodies, and they were still feeling like spacey in their head. And their hair fell out, or their hair was thinning. Sometimes they had difficulty with their vision, or sometimes they just felt like they were always sick, like they never felt right. You know those people? Maybe it's you. Like, just never ever feel like 100%. Ask yourself, what are you putting into your body? And if you are eating meat, if you're a meat eater, maybe there's a mineral deficiency. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you need to, check that out and investigate that further. But getting back to the hair, okay? Personally, okay. I started growing my hair in May of 2019. I found a really good stylist who was on board to support me. I never really had very long hair. Usually I cut it like chin length, or maybe it didn't get past my shoulders, because I always had the belief system that my hair couldn't grow, that it didn't look good long or whatever, or that it got stringy, or, just things that I heard over, the course of my lifetime about my hair. But I decided, what? I learned about limiting beliefs. I was like, what I want? I want long hair. I was 47 at the time. I found a really good stylist, Brittany from Moxie Salon in Acton, Massachusetts, and she's been supporting me in my hair growth ever since. And my hair is like the longest it's ever been. It's super healthy. And I'm sharing this because of this. First of all, I'm 50 now. I've never been healthier. My hair is thick and it grows like a weed, and it's healthy, and I've committed to taking really good care of it. I'm really, really committed to my nutrition. And the reason why I tell you this is just, first of all, age is just a number. Who cares, right? I've had people tell me, oh, just wait till you're old. Do you know how many people told me that I would lose my blonde hair when I became, an adult? Never changed, right? Just because it happened in my family, just because it's a genetic thing means, jack, right? So that's one thing. Secondly, there's this thing, well, when you turn a certain age, your hair just isn't the same anymore. And that's also BS, okay? I call BS on all that stuff. Look at your nutrition. Look at your health. Look at how you're spending your energy. Look at who you're spending time with. Check on your emotions and your stress. Look at all those things. It's not just one thing. It's not just about the meat, okay? You know that about this podcast at this point. It's not just about that one thing, right? When we get healthy in our body and in our minds and our spirit, then that's really when we can build that outer empire that so many of us crave, right? The fire, the financial freedom, the financial abundance, the inner peace, the radiant health, the masculine and feminine energy balance, right? That fire that I talk about so much, that everybody wants. If you're listening, the fact that you're listening to this podcast tells me that you also want that, or else you wouldn't still be listening to this 40 minutes in. But here's the thing that I want to really drive home about the hair, skin, and nails. Specifically the hair, our body hair. If you're having hair issues, hair is a manifestation of the blood. So if you're not getting a menstrual period anymore, even if you still are and you're having hair problems, that is a function of your blood. That means there's something to look at in the health of your blood. Do you have blood stasis? Do you have blood deficiency? Do you need to make some tweaks or changes? Do you need to get more sleep? Do you need to manage your stress? Do you need to manage your mental state? And it's not my intention to overwhelm you with this checklist of all the things to do, because, transformation happens in baby steps. So it happens over time. But if you don't have the hair that you want, right? If your hair is thinning or it's falling out, and you are also a vegetarian, for example, you don't eat meat, that might be something to look at. That might be a clue, because your hair is a manifestation of the state of your blood, according to Chinese medicine theory. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Discover for yourself. So at this point, I'm sure you're already aware that if you are under the impression that meat is the bad guy, you might want to reconsider that belief. And ask yourself this question. And it isn't my intention to force my beliefs or anything on you, just to give you information to ponder. But if you are buying into any kind of mainstream thinking, whether it's about meat or anything else, where are you going to be in another year from now if you continue to listen to everything you hear on the news and you don't ask the questions? The world is changing and is begging for the goddess. I say this in every podcast episode in the beginning. The world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. Goddess meaning reclaiming your divine feminine and personal power. Claiming that person that you were at birth, that sovereign being, before you were indoctrinated with all the beliefs, indoctrinated by your schools and your religion and by your parents, even if these people had the best of intentions, right? So anytime you have a limiting belief about yourself, whether you're in self-doubt or you have maybe you have a belief that you've been holding on to for a long time and it's been very subconscious. That's often how it works with beliefs, is it's subconscious and you don't even really know it's there until you recognize it, right? Which oftentimes involves doing a lot of inner work and digging deep to discover this part about yourself. But anytime you have a limiting belief, it comes from indoctrination. It comes from something that you learned a long, long time ago that is outside of yourself. It didn't come from you. It came from somewhere else. And it could be something as simple as you're on the playground when you're 8 years old, and one of the girls on the playground tells you that you have fat legs, and you carry that with you for the rest of your life. Oh, I have fat legs, right? So that's being indoctrinated with a belief that is first of all not true and has nothing to do with you, right? How many times have you held yourself back because of a limiting belief that you've been holding on to? And when it comes to the life that you want to live and building that outer empire, building that fire and reclaiming that fire, reclaiming your sovereignty, how many times have you held yourself back in living the life that you want to live? I have a really close, dear friend of mine. Love her dearly. She wants to paint. I think I've mentioned her before. But she doesn't think she's good enough. She doesn't think she's creative enough. And she's really, really unwilling to let go of that belief. So unless she changes that part of herself, she's always going to be under the impression that she's not creative. And that could have come from somewhere. That definitely came from somewhere. That came from either somebody told her that a long time ago, or she compared herself to somebody that in her interpretation thought was a better painter than her. Maybe she got it off of a TV show of what is defined as an artist, like a good artist, right? So chances are, if you're listening, there's something that you're doing subconsciously, or maybe you're aware of, that is holding you back because it came from a belief outside of you. And again, I know I'm off of the topic of meat, but I'm using meat as an example. It's not just about the meat, is it? Even though I believe that, as long as your body can tolerate it and digest it and break it down, and if it's unable to do that, that's actually something to look at, right? There might be something you're holding on to that's keeping you from breaking down meat. Because I know people like that too, who are like, I would love to be able to eat a steak, but I actually physically can't because it makes me physically ill. There might be a reason behind that, Have you fully considered what is causing that? It could just be something that you need to let go of energetically or emotionally that's in your system, that's just taxing your system so much that your body physically can't break down meat because its energy is being spent doing other things. Now, I know that's going a little bit like, woo, right? A little bit out there. But you know what? We're energetic beings. And the faster you are willing to accept that part of yourself, the easier it becomes to grow and evolve. And for lack of a better way to explain it, keep up with these changing times, because they're challenging. I get it. So goddesses, I've been babbling. Hopefully it's useful information. But I've been talking for quite a while, and I know your time is valuable, so I'm going to wrap this up. Until the next podcast episode, I want to remind you to be radiant, be powerfully authentic, and know that you can reclaim your fire at any time. And until next time, I love you unconditionally. Remember to shine, girl, shine. Show up as your authentic self and be that person that you already know you are. Take care. Bye. Hi, this is Angela Noel, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have found value in listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could kindly share this podcast with those you care about. Please help me spread the word of empowerment and possibility and expansion by sharing this podcast. Or you could also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Remember to follow me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel, or you could go to my website at www.angelanoelinternational.com to learn more about my work and to find out how you can work with me. Thank you very much.